Okay guys, so I'm continuing the video. This is part two, and I'm showing you the difference with the Screencast-O-Matic. Hopefully you can actually see me here on the bottom. So the first video that I made was just audio, and it was with Screencast, so you could see what we were doing. The second one, you can actually see me, hopefully, and you can look at the screen at the same time. So I'm just going to pick up where I left off. I was saying that with Screencast-O-Matic, you're allowed 15 minutes, which goes by awfully fast when you're trying to go over some of this stuff. But I'll finish navigating through the rhetorical framework, and then I'll move on to the second discussion, which is the applying the framework to the advertising, which is perfect timing because guess what? Tomorrow's the Super Bowl, and this is when people spend millions of dollars on advertisements, and only the cream of the crop actually get in, right? The people with lots of money. So now we can actually take this and we can look at, okay, what are some of the messages that are being sent through advertising through the Super Bowl in 2018, right? It'll be an interesting kind of critique and analysis from a scientific, academic perspective. Okay, so leaving off, we left off on ethos, which is the way that the writer builds credibility in their writing or in their speaking. And so remember, when you're writing, it's part of your task is to build that trust with your reader so that your reader, one, wants to listen to you, and two, can follow along what you're saying and be open to whatever you're saying, regardless of whether or not they particularly agree with you. And so it's a good opportunity to open people's minds and provide them with new information, perhaps, or maybe even open them up to the point where they change their mind about any given topic. So again, each of these sections has, if you're looking at it, it has questions to ask about ethos and then things to remember. So this handout is meaty. There's a lot of information and maybe it's overwhelming. But later, so that's happening right now, but later when you have a stronger sense of what rhetoric is and the rhetorical framework itself, and the rhetorical triangle, then this will be just a way for you to go deeper into the material. So I know this is a lot of information. Again, you're not expected to learn and memorize all this information because we have 14 more weeks to unpack it and understand it. And then after that, you have next semester and the following semester and your entire life to understand it. So again, I just want to remind you that it's a lot of information, a lot of information intake. Okay, so scrolling down to number 5, message. Super important. This is the thing that we look at and we've been trained to look at our entire lives, K through 12 and in college. What is the writer's message? And so we usually say, what is the writer's thesis? What are they trying to say? And they say, I say, the message is called the so what, right? And I think the so what is a really good way of framing and terming the message. So what do they really want to say about a topic, right? Again, with Martin Luther King, his message is very clear that he wants equality, that he wanted African Americans to be treated equally. He wanted signs taken down that discriminate against black people. So his message is loud and clear. Again, you can apply this to any type of thinker or person who's trying to share information about something, whether it's someone who's vegan and wants to promote not eating animals and not eating animal products because of the inhumane practices and the torture of animals. So again, these all apply to any kind of speaker. So we have questions about the message, we have things to remember, right? Again, so I'm just going over the rest of these ones. Writing devices is a category that we created when I was in graduate school, students and teachers, to kind of get at the little things that writers do that really relate to craft, that you notice as a reader, that sometimes you really like as a reader, but you don't know you don't have the language to express why you like it. So when we read something like Natalie Goldberg, for example, in Stalker and Dreamer, she frames her entire piece around the theory of Carlos Castaneda through her two friends, right? This idea of stalker dreamer. It's an entire universe of what it means to be a dreamer and how you can control your dreams, right? We're just scratching the surface of that. So with writing devices, for instance, with Natalie Goldberg, she references Carlos Castaneda, and she uses kind of humor, and she gives the story of Matt and Joey and their father Eddie. Those are all techniques, things that she's doing as a writer that help us to understand a complex idea. But it seems really simple. She kind of waters it down and makes it simple. She even warns us in the beginning of her reading that if you water it down too much, then it can end up being like, oh, he's a Capricorn, or oh, she's a Capricorn. It can be really shallow. And so she gives a warning. That's a rhetorical writing device. That's a move that she makes. So again, some of the things that we have on this handout, if you're looking at the handout, are tropes, similes, metaphors, personification, all techniques to kind of share something with an actual reader. So if you think of poetry, for instance, if you think of Tupac, A Rose That Grows in Concrete, there's this metaphor for this beautiful plant growing out of really adverse environment, right? The place you would never expect to see a rose would be growing out of concrete. That's a metaphor that he uses to show that the human spirit can grow even in the toughest of situations, even in concrete, even when it feels stuck. Again, so these are all writing devices and moves. Huge category. We can add more stuff to it. It involves jargon and slang, playing with language. Poetry is really easy to find these writing devices because poets understand language really well. They choose their words very specifically. They repeat words sometimes. I have a dream, like with King, that's not a poem, but he repeats himself several times, and the repetition itself is a technique. I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream, that someday, right? And so when we finish listening to it, we share that feeling of having a dream, right? It fills us, right? So it's a writing device, a technique, and pathos, right? And we believe him. There's that logos. It really covers the entire triangle. The last one on here is authority referenced, and I already mentioned this one actually with Natalie Goldberg referencing Carlos Castaneda. When she mentions Don Juan, the books of Carlos Castaneda, and Don Juan, who was a shaman who came from a lineage of really kind of ancient ways of knowing things and understanding humanity on different dimensions, she references an authority figure. Carlos Castaneda is well known in the metaphysical world, so using him in her piece sets a tone and gives it a certain credibility because we know that she is referencing someone significant, someone whose ideas have influenced many. So authority reference happens all the time. When you write a research paper and you're asked to get references, those are authority that you're using to talk about a subject. And so we see this all the time. Martin Luther King, to use a consistent example, in Letter from Birmingham Jail, references the Bible many times. And that's a type of authority because the Bible is well known, because scripture is significant to people. Of course not everyone, but many people, whether you know the Bible or not, when it's referenced for a reason. And he specifically will reference saints and disciples, but that's a type of authority referenced. So that is the rhetorical framework handout, lots of information. Again, you're just going to scratch the surface of it and start playing with it. If we go back to our, so in the discussion itself, your job is to read over the handouts and then do a 10-minute free write and then post a 10-minute free write of your ideas regarding the two handouts or regarding the video, whatever appeals to you more, although you should definitely skim over the handouts. What caught your attention? What did you find interesting? How can you apply this framework to your writing? How can it help you in your writing? How can it expand who you are as a writer and offer more opportunities to engage with your audience? Because that is your task when you're a writer, is you're engaging with someone else. You're connecting with another human being. And you want to make that connection something meaningful and something where they leave after reading something that you've written and they are changed. They understand the world differently because of what you've said. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's a big responsibility. And so you want to be impeccable with your words and choose your words wisely. Okay, so that's what you're doing for this discussion. I'm just going to go back, see if I can do this. Let me move the screen a little bit. Just going back to the home page, to the second discussion. So the second discussion is the advertising discussion. And again, we're at here's rhetoric practice fun with advertising. We're in a good situation because we can apply this to the commercials for the Super Bowl. But if you hop on YouTube and you type in commercials or advertisements, you're going to find tons of ads. There are some that we just know. Kim Kardashian eating a hamburger from Carl's Jr. or Paris Hilton eating a hamburger from Carl's Jr. to reference older ones. We just know those, right? We know that sex is used, beautiful women, beautiful things are used to sell things, right? And so we're looking very consciously. The ones that I think are really funny are the Axe commercials. They're just outrageous, right? They use hyperbole or something really extreme to make a point about selling like men's deodorant or men's spray. And so again, we're looking at advertising. You can just go straight to YouTube. But your task in this particular discussion is to play with advertisements. So questions to keep in mind for this particular activity, this discussion, are the following. What is the purpose of applying the rhetorical framework and analysis? How can we use the rhetorical analysis to learn something new? And then the last one is, how do we apply the rhetorical framework effectively to advertising? And so here are your options, and you have two. The first one is to pick two advertisements in image form that you'll perform a mini rhetorical analysis on. Just compare and contrast them using the rhetorical framework. You can pick two advertisements that are both about food. You can pick two advertisements that are both about alcohol, whatever you want. The more you see in common, the more accessible the analysis is going to be. What is their message? Do they have a similar message? How do they get that message across? Do they have a similar vehicle? Are they both using sex to sell something, right, for example? That's option number one, picking two advertisements. So it could be a still advertisement. And the second one is, whereas option number two is pick a commercial advertisement and do a mini rhetorical analysis. So commercial would be a video versus an actual advertisement from like a magazine or something. You know, whatever kind of glamour magazine or men's health magazine or men's fitness magazine. So a still advertisement versus an actual video, right? Two completely different things. But similar in the sense that we're analyzing. So if you're looking at mine, there are two Axe commercials, and then what I did was I just compared them. I did a mini rhetorical analysis so you could see. And then again, I did the same thing of advertisements between with using two beautiful women, and so I kind of analyzed that magazine ads. So again, it's your choice. Option one, compare and contrast to advertisements. Option number two, compare and contrast to videos that are selling something. They're both technically advertisements. So again, I encourage you to play. It would be great if some of us could find and analyze whatever's happening with the advertisements in the Super Bowl, because that's what's happening right now. Those are the messages and the ideas and the rhetoric. That's the current rhetoric, the modern day rhetoric that's happening now. What is our culture saying, and how are they selling us things, these material possessions and these things? So that's it. I hope that the videos helped you. I hope that I can learn captioning. That's my goal in February, to learn captioning, so that way you can follow along, because I do have a tendency to speak fast. But yeah, I hope it helped you, and I hope that I can continue to get better with this technology, so that way when you come to a discussion and we don't have that class time to discuss it, you can hear my voice, you can see my face, and it can just calm any fears that you might have and clarify information. And I hope that you have a great weekend.